The world of cybersecurity vulnerabilities will never be the same again. NIST in recent months has announced that they're not going to be upkeeping the vulnerability databases in the way that they have for the last 20 years. And I'm just going to unpack that for everybody now. My name is Terry Lewis, and for 20 years, I've helped organizations as large as global investment banks through to VC-backed startups and scale-ups manage their cybersecurity posture. What is this all about? So I don't get involved with any conspiracy theories or anything like that, and this is all my personal opinions, but very quickly, the global vulnerability databases, which everyone pretends that that's not their main source of data, it pretty much is. It's used by all of the big vulnerability engines all over the world. It's managed by NIST, and it's managed by them as an organization and has been since 2005, I believe. So every single vendor will log their vulnerabilities to NIST, and they will help manage them and score them in terms of and get communications out and whatnot. So this has been really successful for quite some time. It's successful for the end users because they get updates of vulnerabilities for software that they're using as quick as humanly possible. And it's good for the American government because obviously all governments will manage known or unknown vulnerabilities to their own national interest, and the Americans running that, I suspect, has been sort of fairly good for them for a while. But it's also good for us as a software community as well, because we've got sort of one version of the truth. So the fact that the news was announced that because of the funding cuts within NIST, and the fact that there's a lot more vulnerabilities being disclosed on almost a daily basis, that they've not kept up, and there was something like a backlog of 3,000 or 4,000 at the end of March. So it is a big deal. We will be seeing less vulnerability updates in all of our software for a bit until they clear down the backlog. So it's not a great situation, but I just want to run through a little bit in terms of some of the nuances here. And again, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, so please, you may have to fact check me on a few of these things, but just want to really just run through some of the context here as I see it. So 100%, this is really important to the American government. As money is no object for them with stuff like this because it's a national security interest, them having a funding cut and then saying we can no longer upkeep the vulnerability databases, then all of a sudden there's a consortium that comes out and says, oh, well, we're having vetted consortium members. I've researched again today. I can't see any of their names on the internet, but I think this might be a smart way just for them to say, we're going to prioritize a little bit of this and we don't want the hoo-ha, so we'll do it under a bit of a smoke and mirrors. We'll make the world panic a little bit by all of these vulnerabilities all building up. They've kept in check the real critical ones, so the big sort of 9s and 10s that come up on the scale, they've still kept in check with that. But I think we may have been scared a little bit so that we don't question this consortium approach too much. Now, what I don't want to see in the consortium names that come out is a lot of vendors, the top vulnerability scanning vendors that are already have market caps of multi-billions of dollars effectively, because I just don't think that's the way that it should be done. What I do want to see, though, is organizations like Microsoft in there. I know that they've been coming to some not the best press recently in terms of some of their own security practices at the time of recording this video, certainly, but Microsoft ethically is just an amazing organization under Satya Nadella. He is just doing so much in terms of just bridging the gap in technology in poorer nations, using AI for good and people with disabilities and all of that good stuff. So someone like Satya having an input in the way that the world manages its global vulnerabilities, I think can only be a good thing. Microsoft, I hate saying this, or people hate me saying this, they have the best vulnerability management database in the world. I spend all day, every day, understanding all of the different engines, all the different vulnerability databases. 100%. They still have false positives and they still have false negatives, don't get me wrong, but Microsoft is definitely the best vulnerability database already out there. And effectively, I suspect that Microsoft have always been working with the government, any government institutions, feel free to reach out and shut me up. But when we get something within RoboShadow, the same time as most of the other platforms get the vulnerability updates, we will check, and Microsoft have had this a week ago. So Microsoft are doing their own scoring, but I suspect that there may be some benefit to Microsoft working with the US government already and helping out in that area, because sometimes if ever we see something comes up in RoboShadow that a user's reported to me that wasn't shown in RoboShadow, it's usually because somewhere in the Microsoft chain they've found that before. So that's one thing. Who are these consortium members going to be? I hope that it's people with the right intentions and organizations with the right intentions. If this just becomes a monopoly of the top 3 or 4 vendors, your Rapid7s, your Nessuses and stuff like that, I don't think that's where we need to be. I'd like to see some good ethical organizations sort of have a play here. What does that mean? The other thing I did want to mention is I suspect that AI has probably got something to do with this. So kind of what NIST do is kind of categorize and score, and AI has moved on very quickly, as we know, within the last year. So I think you'll be finding that large language models play a big part of this. It's why I didn't believe we've got funding cuts and funding issues and stuff like that. I think that the rise of the large language model has really helped what NIST do around vulnerability management, and I think the rest of it should just be a sort of 4 eyes check, as it were. So that's another reason why I'm not completely convinced in terms of what we've heard in terms of funding cuts and all of that good stuff. What does that mean from a RoboShadow perspective? We are lucky. We have a big research team anyway. We do half of the job what happens from a categorization perspective anyway, but it is one of our main sources of vulnerability data. So like every single vulnerability management platform, there is going to be a little bit of a backlog, as we would understand, but we've already had irons in the fire for lots of different options. So you'll see a couple of releases from us over the next month or so that just allows us to position ourselves correctly if for some reason this consortium doesn't work in the way that people want it to, or if it's going to be monopolized or something like that. So we have got faith in the good people at NIST that this will just all blow over very quickly, and the consortium members will be selected that will be true and honourable to do that job, and not just on behalf of the states, but on behalf of the world. But if it doesn't go the way that we want it to, we're already sort of building out and changing our capability so that we don't have to rely on that so much. So hopefully that puts stuff into perspective. I don't think there is a global conspiracy going on here. I just think that the American government might just be being a little bit smart or a little bit coy, for want of a better expression, when it comes to the change that they want to make here. And unfortunately, I think some private organisations will end up getting involved. And I just hope that those organisations are honourable. So thanks ever so much for watching.